Now on Fox 13 News at 9, former President Donald Trump is facing more criminal charges. What we know about this second indictment.
It's a busy time for search and rescue teams here in the canyons. What you can do to keep yourself safe.
We're not done with the storms quite yet. How long the stormy pattern will last, and also if it'll impact your weekend plans.
Utah's flooding concerns following a record-breaking snowfall this winter appear to be in the rearview mirror.
I think we're out of the woods as far as flooding.
What comes next for farmers and ranchers recovering from the flooding?
Finding your parents like that and what's happened, I can't even imagine.
A couple is dead in an apparent murder-suicide. Their 16-year-old daughter finding their bodies inside their Hiram home. Details on the tragic story in Cache County.
Live from Utah's news leader, Fox 13 News at 9 starts right now.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kelly Chapman.
And I'm Bob Evans. Former President Donald Trump has been indicted in the investigation of classified documents found at his Florida home.
The former president says he is expected to appear at a Miami courthouse next week, although the DOJ has not yet confirmed this. It is just the latest in legal woes for Mr. Trump, but a case that has marked one of the most serious investigations.
Scripps News correspondent Haley Bull has our top story tonight.
Former President Donald Trump announced he's been indicted connected to an investigation into the alleged mishandling of classified documents found at his Mar-a-Lago estate. Turning to Truth Social, Trump maintained his innocence and called it a dark day for the U.S.
They come after me because now we're leading in the polls again by a lot, against Biden and against the Republicans by a lot. But we're leading against Biden by a lot, a tremendous amount. And we went up to a level that they figure the way they're going to stop us is by using what's called warfare. And that's what it is. This is warfare for the law.
The indictment and the documents probe follows the discovery of boxes at Trump's Florida home with classified markings, which set off concerns about any potential security implications and whether there was obstruction of the investigation. Trump's lawyers reportedly met with DOJ officials earlier this week. Trump accused the Biden administration of weaponizing the DOJ, though the White House to date has maintained its separation. After Trump declared his candidacy for 2024, Attorney General Merrick Garland appointed special counsel Jack Smith to oversee the investigation, marking a careful approach to sidestep politics. Before Trump made an announcement Thursday, Biden addressed Trump's attacks on the DOJ.
I have never once, not one single time, suggested to the Justice Department what they should do or not do relative to bringing a charge or not bringing a charge. I'm honest.
The investigation has highlighted political divides, with some Republicans quickly criticizing the indictment. It's among several investigations Trump faces, including from business dealings to January 6th, that have potential legal and political implications. Trump already sought to fundraise Thursday night. Haley Bull, Scripps News, Washington.
Former Vice President Mike Pence and President Biden have also faced investigations related to the discovery of classified documents.
Stay with Fox 13 News as we continue to track the latest developments in this major news story. We'll keep you updated on air and online at fox13now.com. After a 40-day stretch, the National Weather Service has canceled its last remaining flood advisory and warning for the Sevier River at Hatch and the Bear River at Woodruff.
Fox 13 News reporter Chris Arnold went to Rich County to hear from ranchers and farmers along the Bear River as they recover now from the spring runoff.
The water started draining off and running down the valley and back into the river and leaving.
What a difference a month has made for lifelong rancher Seth Weston out in Rich County.
There's places for cattle to feed.
A much different sight than when Fox 13 News spoke with Weston just a little more than a month ago.
I don't think I've ever seen it like this.
The record-breaking snowfall, along with a delayed warm-up in the spring runoff, was detrimental for Weston, who lost several calves.
I figure I lost probably at least 24 or 5.
And others, like Joel Ferry?
It was a good 4 feet deep. On part of my farm where we grow pumpkins and we have some pastures.
This is Ferry, a fifth-generation farmer, exactly 1 month ago on his farm in Corinne.
The water that came down, while it did flood and it did cause some damage, it was significantly reduced because this kind of long, drawn-out runoff. It was perfect.
In the latest report from the USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service, they say that most of the snowpack in Utah's mountains has melted out, with the rest of it melting quickly. According to the report, as of June 1st, there was an average of 3.1 inches of snow water equivalent, which is expected to be fully melted by the end of the month. Now, farmers and ranchers are left recovering from the flooding.
So we've discussed anything from getting funding to be able to provide grants for those farmers and ranchers that have been affected, to even possibly emergency loans, low interest rate loans through our department.
Bailey Wolstenhume with the Utah Department of Agriculture and Food says they were hopeful to get some funding during the special session to help farmers and ranchers, but were not able to make that happen.
The good news is that during that special session, they did extend Governor Cox's emergency declaration over flooding, which keeps options open for us.
That's the kind of aid that farmers would welcome.
So you're going to have a handful of producers that are really impacted, and they're impacted significantly.
There is a program, that federal program, that is going to pay some on them, and if the state would just even match that.
In Rich County, Chris Arnold, Fox 13 News, Utah.
So the question is, are we done with flooding for this season, Allison?
Yes, of course, that's the huge question. So as you heard there, we are, if not done with it, at the very tail end of most of our problems. We do have still a little bit of rain in the forecast over the next couple of days. So we start heading into monsoon season later this summer, and that brings a new whole host of issues for our areas of flash flooding concerns. But so far, we are off to a, knock on wood, great start to our summer here across Utah. Really happy with how things have been playing out the last few weeks. And in the coming days, another low pressure system that's going to move in. There's a series of storms continuing late weekend. We're going to start fueling additional storms here across Utah. Until then, some isolated storm chances. Temperatures in the 60s through much of the night here in Salt Lake City, close to about 55 to 60 when you wake up tomorrow morning for much of Utah. So heading into your Friday, we'll start things mostly clear here across Utah, 40s, 50s, and even low 60s for your Friday morning, with more storm chances throughout the day tomorrow. But those are isolated storm chances, a little less than today, but we do have more storms late in the weekend with that next storm approaching the California coast. And then things are also going to cool down a little bit Sunday into Monday. More on that coming up.
Allison, thanks. We have an update now on a fire that we've been tracking since earlier tonight in southern Utah. The Harmony Ridge fire near the city of New Harmony started just before 5 o'clock p.m. So far, it has burned about 5 acres, and as of about 30 minutes ago, the fire was 70% contained. Authorities say it is human-caused. Structures, however, are no longer threatened.
Take a look at this video from one of UDOT's cameras in that area. You can see authorities flying a helicopter to dump water on the fire near the plume of the smoke, or origins of the smoke. The air resources have left now, and crews are in the mop-up stage.
It has been a busy and tragic start to the summer for search and rescue crews in Salt Lake County, with more calls and deaths than they usually see.
Fox 13 News reporter Maithili Gubi shows us their work in the Cottonwood Canyons and what you should keep in mind before heading to the mountains.
Heartbreaking situations with people losing their lives while climbing in the Cottonwood Canyons.
We're barely into June and we've had 3 fatalities. That's, really a horrific thing.
On Thursday, we met up with search and rescue teams trying to bring a hiker off the mountain. Even being prepared and having the right skills doesn't remove the risks of being in the mountains, especially this year.
You may have been out here climbing for the last 20 years. The mountains are different. The water, all that erosion, the ice, and everything that's occurred and is occurring now with the significant flow that we have is changing things to a lot of loose boulders and loose rock.
Sergeant Cutler says another concern in the canyons right now is this fast-moving water. Officials are worried that if someone does fall inside, could hurt themselves on a rock or get swept away with the river. And at that point, it's more of a recovery than a rescue.
There's a lot of people up here, right? So it's not just our search and rescue team out here, but our canyon officers, and this pulls them away from the other canyons, those regular patrols that they're doing, any sort of crime or anything that's occurring in our canyons as well.
All the search and rescue crews are highly trained and they're volunteers, putting their lives on the line to help people in need.
They are climbing up these very steep, very dangerous inclines to help others. So keeping that in mind in the back of your head, if you don't have that kind of skill level, maybe you need to think twice about it because it's not just you.
In Little Cottonwood Canyon, I am Maithili Gubbi, Fox 13 News, Utah.
There was a 16-year-old girl who said that she had gone inside the home and both of her parents were deceased.
Tragedy in Cache County. A mother and father are found dead in an apparent murder-suicide. How the community and the victim's family are reacting tonight.
Multiple Utah politicians are throwing their hat into the ring to succeed Congressman Chris Stewart in our nation's capital. We'll break down who's in the running.
The place we're standing right now, Bryce Canyon National Park, turns 100 years old today. We'll tell you some of the history, the stories, and the amazing beauty of this landscape.
Could soccer star Lionel Messi play at RSL in September? I'll tell you about the U.S. Open Cup draw coming up.
We have been covering the 100-year celebration of Bryce Canyon National Park, and tonight, to cap it all off, the Piano Guys are performing right now.
Yeah, that's going to be a great concert. Fox 13 News reporter Spencer Joseph has been with us all day, showing us some of the history and stories that go along with the big anniversary. Spencer joins us live tonight from that concert. Looks pretty cool behind you there, Spencer.
It absolutely does, and there's so many people here that are experiencing that first time here at Bryce Canyon National Park, and they get the Piano Guys to play their theme songs as they overlook this beautiful vista. I mean, I'm a little bit jealous because the first time I was here, I didn't get the Piano Guys to play this beautiful orchestral theme as I saw it. But so many people are talking about this Bryce moment, the first time that you see it. So we asked a lot of people today what was theirs, and here is what they said.
Oh, say, can you see?
So the Bryce moment is the moment you come over the rim and you see it for the first time.
That moment where they're awestruck, you know, some people cry, other people laugh, you know, and celebrate seeing that.
When we come here, we feel the connection to the people that are past here.
Almost everybody I have talked to tells me virtually the same thing. Bryce Canyon is my favorite national park.
And it almost makes me feel like I could almost cry.
I've been to every corner of this state, many, many places in the country and in the world, and there's just nothing like Bryce Canyon.
The Bryce moment, you see it yourself for the first time, and then you always want to bring other people here, and it's really fun to bring people here and see their face when they first see it.
I declare June 8th, 2023 as Bryce Canyon Day in Utah. I have to tell you about something that happened on May 8th, 2020. One of the darkest times in my life. I was afraid. I didn't know how much more I could take. My incredible wife, who is here with us, she noticed that, obviously, and she said, "Where do you want to go?" And I said, "I think I need to go to Bryce." Sorry, I get emotional thinking about it. It was magical, and it literally saved my life.
I think it's very special and important that they brought us here because it is our land and it is a part of us and it has our blood and everything mixing with the earth.
There's something almost spiritual about this place.
And I think there's just a moment that, for me, feels reverent every time I go out there, and I feel restored every time I see it.
It's just so spectacular, and it's just so beautiful that it's just a proud thing for us to have that in our family.
We're looking forward to the next 100 years, and we certainly hope that people are able to come and have many Bryce moments over those 100 years.
It is absolutely electric out here. They were supposed to just play their last song, but it looks like they're going to get an encore. So many people don't want to let this moment go as Bryce Canyon turns 100 years old today. At least the national park does. If you want to experience your own very special Bryce moment, there's actually going to be events all throughout the centennial year, all throughout 2023. We already have a list of those up on fox13now.com. If you yourself want to experience this incredible place, and we're so lucky as Utahns to say that it's in our home state. For now, live at Bryce Canyon National Park, Spencer Joseph, Fox 13 News, Utah.
I tell you what, Spencer did such a magnificent job with his reporting today and really bringing the flavor of this 100-year anniversary. And I know Bryce Canyon is one of your favorite places, Kelly.
I've been there once, and it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's one of those parks, well, every park is really beautiful, but when it has a little bit of fresh snow on it in the winter.
You know, I've heard you mention that, and you've shown live shots of Bryce Canyon
Yeah.
the dusting of snow.
Well, and he was wearing a coat tonight, Spencer,
Yes.
and he was wearing one today.
The elevation's high. It's one of our cooler national parks, and if you ever get the chance to go when it's winter and you can see that fresh snow on the red rocks, oh my goodness. It is, as they said, a Bryce moment. Very, very magical. Here across the United States today, though, speaking of a national story, still a lot of smoke in the Northeast from the fires that are burning off to our north and northeast. Us here in Utah, we've been really lucky. We had a little bit of that Canadian wildfire smoke a few weeks ago. Today we've had some storms, and these storms have just been coming every afternoon, just pretty isolated. So maybe you see some rain, maybe you don't, but still they're beautiful to watch off in the distance. Also 70 degrees currently in Salt Lake, 68 for Ogden right now, 64 in Provo. And for the Wasatch Front for your tomorrow morning drive, close to 60 with sunshine. Tomorrow evening, partly cloudy. We do have some isolated storms in the forecast for your Friday and Saturday, but as I've been looking at our flash flood potential for our recreation areas, I always like to check out our national parks, our areas that people like to get out and do exploring here in Utah. One of the things that we're known for is our slot canyons, and we are not expecting flash flooding for tomorrow in our recreation areas. So that's great news getting into a weekend. We look at an area of low pressure that is again going to develop right over California, and it's going to bring us additional storm chances late Sunday into Monday. Until then, we do have some isolated storm chances here in Utah. So for tomorrow, our storm threat is still for some isolated thunderstorms, mainly about Escalante just to your north, so about Capitol Reef further north into tomorrow. We head into the next couple of days. Temperatures will be pretty similar to where we were today, low 80s for the Wasatch Front. So we'll start with Friday at 6 a.m. It'll be about 45 to 60 here along the Wasatch Front. Tomorrow, our temperatures do rise, close to 80 or low 80s tomorrow. Isolated storm chances are possible, but generally it'll be a very nice day here. Getting closer to the weekend, temperatures tomorrow about 70 to 80 for much of the state. And then temperatures will end up eventually cooling down a little bit late weekend into early next week as that next area of low pressure starts to develop over California. But tomorrow, a little breezy here across the state, not that bad, not as gusty as it was today. St. George, you're about 85 to 95 for the next week. Getting a little hot towards the end of the 7-day forecast, closer to Father's Day weekend. Still some question marks about what's going to happen getting into next weekend. I know there's a lot of festivals. We've got Westfest, we've got Father's Day next weekend, and so a lot of you have questions about what we can expect. There's still some model disagreement on what's going to happen after our 7-day forecast. But for tomorrow, isolated storms, same thing on Saturday. Better storm chances Sunday and Monday. Temperatures a little bit cooler early next week. We'll talk more about that. And also, we will take a look at the 2-week temperature outlook and precipitation outlook coming up in your Super 7-day forecast.
Thanks, Allison. Coming up, it was quite a scene in Brigham City today after a truck crashed through the front doors of City Hall. What we've learned tonight.
And Salt Lake police say 911 hang-up calls are on the rise. What could be behind that, and what you should do if you accidentally dial 911. We'll be right back.
Cleanup is underway in Brigham City after a man crashed a pickup truck through the front doors of City Hall today. It happened at about 3 this afternoon. Police believe there were mental health issues involved because his first statements were that he was being followed and that people were trying to harm him. They believe impairment may also have been a factor, but they're not sure and are still investigating. No one was in the lobby at the time and the driver was not hurt. The crash shut down City Hall for the rest of the day today, and access to the south side of the building will be limited tomorrow. In downtown Salt Lake City, the UTA TRAX lines were affected when a car crashed into an oncoming train at about 3:30 this afternoon. Happened at 500 South Main Street. No one was hurt, but there were plenty of delays for about an hour and a half on the red, blue, and green lines.
Members of the Salt Lake City Council have sent a letter to the Utah legislature about the controversy surrounding a UTA bus removed from the Pride Parade just last Sunday. 4 state lawmakers had complained. The bus had a Pride-themed wrap, which lawmakers said was inappropriate because UTA receives taxpayer money. Now, the letter, shared with Fox 13 News, is signed by Council Chair Darren Mano, Chris Wharton, and Alejandro Puy. They said LGBTQ people ride the bus too, and legislators asking for an apology from UTA reinforces the message that government systems can decide some people don't belong. The council members say it reminds them of Rosa Parks being asked to give up her seat for a white passenger. They add all people should feel safe and valued, even on transit.
A Utah teen finds her parents dead inside their home in what police call a murder-suicide. The tragic story tonight in Cache County.
This creek usually only flows like this for a few days every year. But thanks to this year's record-breaking snowpack, people will be floating the muddy creek for weeks.
Utah distance runner Emily Venters has a chance to win a national championship tonight. I'll show you if she does it coming up.
As Bryce Canyon celebrates 100 years, we found a story about love and history.
I knew the minute I saw her, she wanted to marry.
How a man met the woman of his dreams the first day on the job, and the legacy of their life together.
The Cache County Sheriff's Office continues to investigate a murder-suicide in Hiram from last night.
The 16-year-old daughter of the couple involved discovered their bodies and then called 911. Deputies do believe 38-year-old Dustin Priest shot his wife in a bedroom, then took his own life in another room of the house. Sheriff Chad Jensen says the couple had lived in Hiram for a while now. Dustin was an HOA board member within the neighborhood they lived. The HOA president says she's known him for years and describes the Priests as a very close family who were always camping and hiking together.
I saw him a couple weeks ago and everything was normal. We just had a short conversation in my driveway and everything seemed to be going well. So this was definitely a shock.
The sheriff says murder-suicides are not common in northern Utah, especially in Hiram. The last time the sheriff's office saw something similar in Cache Valley was 2 years ago. Victim advocates are working with the daughter to get her the help she needs. The Priest family did issue a statement tonight saying they appreciate the outpouring of love from the community. They're also asking for privacy during this time. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, free support is available 24/7. Please call 1-800-897-LINK. That's 1-800-897-5465. You can also find free resources from the Utah Domestic Violence Coalition on their website, udvc.org.
The driver who hit a group of trick-or-treaters in 2021, killing one and seriously injuring another, will serve 10 days in jail. That was the sentence handed down this morning in Taylorsville Justice Court. Dominic Rodriguez pleaded guilty to one misdemeanor count of driving with a measurable controlled substance in the body. A blood test taken after the crash found traces of a substance produced by cocaine consumption. Prosecutors had requested a 90-day jail sentence. The crash happened at 2700 West Matterhorn Drive in Taylorsville. An investigation determined, due to several factors, including a lack of lighting at the scene, Rodriguez was not at fault for hitting the boys who were in a crosswalk. Now, 13-year-old Carl Finch died in that crash. The children's families attended the sentencing virtually today and chose not to deliver victim impact statements. The Salt Lake Police Department says they have seen a 131% increase in 911 hang-up calls from cell phones last week.
That's a big jump. That is compared to the very same week last year. Police say the cause of the uptick is unknown, but many accidental 911 calls do occur when a phone's emergency services mode is activated.
Sometimes we have to go to the dispatch location, and obviously that takes up time and resources that could otherwise be allocated to other areas.
How many people are in the seat answering is based on what we expect. With that kind of a spike, it is a strain on staffing, of course, because we need more people in the seats to help out.
Now, if you ever do misdial 911, they say just don't hang up. Stay on the line and answer any questions dispatchers may have for you. You can also contact the Salt Lake City Police Department non-emergency line if you ever need help. That number is 801-799-3000. Candidates are beginning to file to replace Utah's Chris Stewart in Congress.
Former State Representative Becky Edwards went to the Lieutenant Governor's office today and filed for the Republican nomination. She brought with her a crowd of supporters.
I'll tell you what we have, and we've felt that all along, is this amazing groundswell of support from across the state. People who have, in many cases, not been involved in elections before and have seen a candidate and a shared vision for our state, for our country, and that has been just invigorating.
In addition to Becky Edwards, here's who else has filed with the Lieutenant Governor's office. Former Utah House Speaker Greg Hughes, GOP National Committeeman Bruce Huff, and January Walker representing the United Utah Party. We expect more people to jump into this race. June 14th is the deadline to file.
Well, coming up, we continue our coverage of 100 years of Bryce Canyon National Park. We're going to talk about a historic building that the National Park Service restored for the centennial and the man who's got a love story to go along with it.
And today, temperatures made it to 83 degrees, just barely above normal for this time of year. We'll talk more about chances for storms for your Friday and heading into the weekend in just a few minutes.
Welcome back, everyone, as we continue Bryce Canyon's 100-year anniversary coverage. Fox 13 News reporter Spencer Joseph has a very special story.
It is a romantic mix of love and history that you will only see right here.
And when I got out of the Army, I was working down in Zion, and they advertised the Bryce Canyon job of managing the service station.
This is Mervyn Barnhurst. Shortly after the station opened, he became its manager.
Well, I feel proud that I worked there. They was good to me.
It was a place that connected the motoring public to the park to make sure if they needed a quick fix, they could get back on their way. But there's one thing Merv said he did most.
I spent quite a bit of my time unlocking cars. People would go lock their keys in the car and couldn't get back in.
All those hikers would go down in the canyon and forget that they locked their keys in their car. That's funny.
They didn't think so.
So this was the last structure built by the Union Pacific Railroad. And with the resuming of tourist travel after the war, they saw automobile use just skyrocketing.
But it became run down, and in 1988, it closed.
It's more or less been closed since then, until now, the park centennial year. It's a cool building. I'm glad it's getting some use.
Park spokesperson Peter Densmore showed it off as it's now seeing new life, having been completely restored.
It took a little while to get all the historic preservation, restoration work done.
It will now serve as a place to rent bikes to ride the rim and maintain its history for a new use. But there's another story that's attached to this place that's lasted all these years, and it happened 57 years ago on Mervyn's first day.
I just went to dinner and she waited at my table. And I knew the minute I saw her, she wanted to marry.
At the cafeteria, he met her, Lorna Pollock, the woman of his dreams.
And they wanted me to eat at the lodge. And I went to the cafeteria and met Lorna, and I told them no, I wasn't going to eat at the lodge.
She felt the same way, but there might have been a helping hand.
And like I say, I had a brand new Chevy Impala I'd bought just before I moved out there. So it made an impression. We went together all summer, and November 12th, we got married.
They're still together today, living at the nearby Garfield County Nursing Home.
And I have 6 kids and how many grandkids?
So maybe love is in the air at Bryce Canyon as the park reaches its 100th year.
We want these places to be available for the people to interact with and connect with.
And while many fall in love with this beautiful place, for this couple, when they saw each other, it truly was.
It was love at first sight.
Oh, well, not everyone has that fairy tale love story moment at a national park. There are a lot of reasons to visit Utah's Big Five, as they're called. Yeah. We want to know, how often do you make it to Zion, Canyonlands, Bryce, Capitol Reef, or Arches? Scan that QR code on the screen with your phone right now to get to fox13now.com/voice and make your voice heard. So far, what's the leader here?
Looks like at least once a year is leading, followed by been to 1 or 2 once. And if you notice, these results are updating in real time. So if you get on there and let your voice be heard, you just may see those numbers move because of you.
We'd love to see what you have to say.
Sure do. Well, coming up, with air quality top of mind right now as smoke smothers the Northeast, what to know about ozone season here in Utah.
Utah distance runner Emily Venters is running for a national championship right now in Austin, Texas. And Jo Adell back in the big leagues and still hitting home runs. It's all coming up in sports.
Well, this year's historic snowpack has all our rivers and creeks flowing higher and faster than usual, including a creek in southern Utah that's typically a muddy hiking trail.
Fox 13 News reporter Jenna Bree takes us to Emery County, where people are taking advantage of a rare phenomenon.
When it comes to Utah's most magnificent natural wonders, not everyone knows about the Muddy Creek.
The canyon's amazing. It's really scenic. The chute is just breathtaking. 300-foot walls, water from wall to wall.
But this wall-to-wall water is not usually there.
On drought years, it can actually dry up and go completely dry.
Jaden Mead says the Muddy River flows once a year for about a week during the spring runoff. Few people are able to float the whole thing.
Usually by the time they hear that it's floatable and they put together a trip, it's no longer floatable. And this year, it has been.
The chute of the Muddy Trip is 15 miles long, and it takes an estimated more than 7 hours to float. Because of hazards like trees, rocks, and flooding, the BLM recommends only experienced paddlers try it.
There was a tree that had fallen across the whole creek, and both of us got flipped on the tree, and she went under it and I went over it.
Matt Pesha and Shelby Carter had never paddled down the Muddy Creek before.
We walked it, actually, and it was truly muddy. It was mud up to, knee deep sometimes, and so that made me wonder what it would be like to do it with a raft.
The Muddy Creek has been flowing for weeks already, and the BLM guesses it could be full of water until July.
It's really nice to see some of these things, some of the ephemeral washes flowing. It's just been kind of a different year. Get to see a different side of the place.
With more people having the window of opportunity to float the Muddy, Mead hopes visitors remember to pack in, pack out, and leave no trace.
Definitely a very unique and remote place, and I hope we can keep it that way.
In Emery County, Jenna Bree, Fox 13 News, Utah.
In national news, Pat Robertson, the founder of the Christian Broadcasting Network and host of the 700 Club for nearly 6 decades, has died. In a statement, the network said the longtime televangelist passed away at home surrounded by family. Robertson made a one-time run as a Republican presidential candidate in 1988. The following year, he founded the Christian Coalition in an effort to mobilize evangelical voters. The faith leader also drew controversy, frequently making anti-gay remarks, speaking out against abortion, and claiming the terrorist attacks on 9/11 were caused by God because America had moved to the left. Pat Robertson was 93 years old.
Wildfire smoke from Canada continues to cover northeastern U.S. skies. Tonight, leaders in New York City and Washington, D.C. are asking people to stay inside.
We have advisories out to the public. We also are going to modify some government operations, and we're asking people to take heed.
President Biden also urged people in affected areas to listen to their state and local leaders.
All the talk around wildfire smoke is also a reminder that summer is our ozone season here in Utah.
Utah's Weather Authority meteorologist Allison Krogan has some good news when it comes to that front. Tell us, Allison.
That's right. So I'm sure many of you have noticed we've been in a pretty active storm pattern here in Utah. And while the eastern half of the country is dealing with all of that smoke, we've had a series of low pressure systems moving into California and plenty of moisture available to help fuel cloud and storm development here in Utah. So while our precipitation has been spotty, some areas have been getting a lot of rain, some getting nothing. And an air quality expert, Bo Call, tells me the clouds have been great for our summer ozone.
Summer is usually our ozone season, and that is driven by sunlight much of the time. And so we're very conscious of these afternoon cloud formations that pop up. And that seems to do a really good job of shutting down the ozone formation.
All right, so we were chatting about this, and we were just kind of talking about a typical summer day. And what Bo recommends is that people get outside and make activity plans for earlier in the day if you are sensitive to any sort of bad air quality, heart or lung conditions, you're pregnant, elderly, you've got young children. Not only will you likely have better air as far as the summer ozone goes, it's usually a little bit cooler in the morning, plus the UV index is not as high, so I think it's a win-win all around. Our air quality did make it to the ozone level of moderate today, and that is the forecast for Friday and Saturday. So likely, maybe could have been worse with some higher numbers. Had we not had that cloud cover here this afternoon, we again had some storms that were rolling through on and off. And then I also, Bob and Kelly, wanted to share this picture with you that somebody just posted in our Facebook group. Tom, thank you so much for sharing this. Earlier in the hour, we were talking about how magical Bryce is in the winter.
Just beautiful.
And so Tom said
Isn't
that
it, Kelly?
he and his wife of 50 plus years love to visit Bryce with that fresh coat of snow. So if you ever get the chance to get down that way with a dusting of snow, it really is spectacular. Here in Salt Lake right now, obviously not talking about snow. We have been talking about snow melt, and yesterday morning, the National Weather Service had announced that they were canceling the rest of our flood warnings and advisories. We still have a flood watch in effect for the Cache Valley, but our advisories and warnings, our two higher categories, are now all done after 40 straight days of snow melt concerns. So that's very reassuring. Very, very happy to hear that news. We also do have some more storms in the forecast. We'll eventually start heading into monsoon season. And the pattern that we've been having here, we're not into monsoon season yet, but our pattern is atypical for June. We typically have a very dry June, but we've got still some storms in the forecast over the next couple of days. Unlikely precipitation overnight for the Wasatch Front. Come 9 a.m., we are back to some isolated storm chances through about 6, 7 o'clock. We lose our daytime heating. Things are going to become unlikely again. So your hour-by-hour forecast, waking up on Friday morning, mostly clear sky here across the state. We're going to have our temperatures into Friday afternoon, very similar to today, with some isolated storms in the forecast. We're not expecting severe weather here in Utah over the next couple of days, but potentially some stronger storms could move in again, and with more widespread precipitation heading into later in the weekend into early next week. So active weather will be continuing. For Ogden, for Friday and Saturday, isolated storms the next 2 days. For Provo, your chance of precipitation for tomorrow is widely scattered, isolated on Saturday, a little bit higher come Sunday and Monday. And for St. George, you have a pretty dry 7-day forecast. So we're going to end up with pretty decent conditions for much of the state over the next few days. And for St. George, you're going to be about 85 to 95 degrees for the next week. Now for the Wasatch Front, we're looking at 81 tomorrow, 82 on Saturday, mid-80s on Sunday, starting to cool down early next week into the mid-70s by next Tuesday. After our 7-day forecast, our temperature outlook for days 8 to 14, the 16th of June through the 22nd of June, temperatures a little bit below normal, so that means mid to upper 70s. And then our precipitation outlook in that same time frame, middle of June, 16th through the 22nd, above average precipitation. So it looks like during week 2, things are going to trend a little bit cooler and also a little bit wetter, and that would take us into Father's Day weekend. As I mentioned earlier, still a lot of question marks on how Father's Day weekend is going to play out, but it does look like in that longer week 2 forecast, cooler and wetter.
It's day 2 of the NCAA Track and Field Championships in Austin, Texas. Utah's Emily Venters ran the 6th fastest time of all time in the women's 10K earlier this year when she became only the 8th woman in NCAA history to run under 32 minutes. When she had a great run earlier this year at Stanford, she went into the final with the fastest time this season. Venters is right there in front with a few laps to go, but Evelyn Kemboy of Utah Valley has taken the lead. Aubrey Fenoweth from BYU is also in the race coming down the stretch.
Top priority for hosting the 2023 U.S. Open Cup final.
I'm nervous.
I know, I am
My
too,
heart's like
actually. Whoa. Wow, 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 wow.
Ayo.
Real Salt Lake.
Real Salt Lake.
Yeah, the U.S. Open Cup draw was today. RSL lost out to the Dynamo in the semifinal draw, so they'll play in Houston on August 23rd. But if they win that game, RSL will host the final. Inter Miami is also in the other semifinal, so if they both win, RSL could host Lionel Messi and Miami in the final in September. Would that be great? Golden Knights took a 2-0 lead into Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Final tonight in Florida. Jonathan Marchessault put Vegas up 2-1 in the second period. The Panthers were scored late in the third, and Carter Verhaeghe scored the game winner in overtime. 3-2 Panthers. Vegas leads the series 2-1. Michael Stefanik extended his Bees franchise on-base record to 62 games tonight against Round Rock. After giving up 3 runs in the top of the first inning, the Bees answered in the bottom half. Jake Lamb with a double scoring Stefanik. Then it's Zach Humphreys with an RBI double. The Bees scored 3 in the first to tie the score, but Round Rock went on to win it 8-3. Joe Adell was just with the Bees on Tuesday. In his first game since being called up by the Angels, Adell crushed a home run. Welcome back to the big leagues. Adell had a league-leading 18 homers with the Bees this season. Now he has 1 and counting with this season with the Angels. After going undefeated in the regular season, the Utah Falcons opened up the playoffs tonight against San Diego as they go after their first championship since 2017.
I like that we all have each other's back and that we're all looking for truth, honor, and thrill of the hunt.
Honestly, it comes down to how we treat the team. It's more than just a team, it is a family. Everybody's there to help each other, and it's not just football. So I think the biggest thing is family.
Going into playoffs, anything can happen. Sometimes people can get down if one thing bad happens. I have confidence that if anything bad does happen, this team's going to pick each other up. They're not going to start falling apart, and we're just going to bounce back from it.
And how about this? The race just ended in Texas. Evelyn Kemboy of Utah Valley won the national championships in the 10K.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
wow.
The Utah Valley national
champion.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
Way to go,
well, they had some early
Wolverines.
Venters and a couple
That's
of
great.
Alabama runners. while we were
UVU.
finished with sports.
Catch up with her when she gets back into town.
try
Let
our
us know
best.
what's next. Like, what do you do after the national
Yeah, yeah,
Olympics?
yeah.
Maybe?
Maybe so.
Yeah.
Maybe so.
Thanks, Jeff.
We'll be right back.
Thank you, everyone, for being with us tonight for Fox 13 News at 9.
Stick around. Quickcast is next.